Now that an older Bruce Wayne has returned to a Gotham City that he barely recognizes, how far will he be willing to go to wrestle the city away from Derek Powers? Well, let's hop into the pages of Batman Beyond White Knight issue number 3 and find out together. So then, as we rejoin the book, we check back on in with Terry McGinnis, who is continuing to do dirty jobs for Derek Powers. I like the idea that in the cartoon, Terry fought against corporate raiding and corporate espionage, yet here in this comic, that's exactly what he's doing. We also discovered that despite how high-tech this brand new Beyond Batman suit is, it's not perfect. It's still a prototype, and even a little spilt coffee can cause it to malfunction. Funny enough, I also malfunction when I spill my coffee. Granted, mostly that's just swearing and throwing stuff across the room, but hey, it's a malfunction to me, damn it. Now, at the end of the last issue, they dropped a major bomb that at some point in the intervening years, Bruce and Harley had become married, but as we quickly discover, it's not at all what you think. Yes, they had grown very close, yes, they had become good friends and trusted allies, but really though, Bruce says the only reason that he and Harley got hitched is so she wouldn't be forced to testify against him in court. Spousal privilege and all of that, which is an actual real thing in the real world too, not something they just made up for this story. Harley is of course over the moon to have Bruce back, but he still very much pushes her away. Jack also doesn't know what to do with this idea that his best friend and his best girl ended up getting together. Bruce is of course quick to tell the AI Jack that they were never best friends, despite the fact that he keeps mentioning it. Hollow Jack also comes face to face with his son, Bryce, too. Bryce has no idea what's going on, but wonders if Uncle Bruce is back now to try and hunt down Jackie, who is still missing after the big blowout fight that her and her mother had a couple issues ago. Bruce actually agrees to help, putting this whole Beyond suit thing on the back burner for a little bit, knowing full well that these are people who need him right now, and hey, once a hero, always a hero. Now, in the last issue too, you'll remember that Duke Thomas had actually walked away from Dick Grayson and the GTO. He returns to Barbara Gordon in hopes that he can get his old job back as a GCPD detective. But surprise, surprise, Barbara has other plans, saying that someone with as good a heart as Duke could be very instrumental in helping realign the balance of power in Gotham. Despite having not even talked to Bruce yet, the former Batgirl says she already has a plan, and as such gives Duke a very important gift. Keep that in mind because it will come back later. Now, over with Bruce and the Jack AI, our hero ends up getting his old suit out of mothballs. He says that it's not nearly as high-tech as the one that Terry's sporting right now, but it should do the trick. It can't become invisible, but it can cloak itself from cameras. Maybe the fact that the suit is so low-tech might actually give Bruce an edge in this very high-tech dystopia. The plan is to sneak into the GCPD building and use the camera footage to try and find Jackie's face somewhere in the crowd. Harley wants to tag along and help, saying it's her daughter and her life, but Batman does what Batman does best and leaves people holding the bag. We then also get two really excellent pages in a row that straight up reference direct pieces of dialogue and scenes from the Batman Beyond cartoon. We see Terry at home with his girlfriend, who is every bit as ignored here as she was ignored in the cartoon show, before Derek Powers calls Terry up and says that he finally has a lead on the man who killed his father, Bruce Wayne. Well, isn't that just convenient? The other scene in question is the Napier AI giving his own snide commentary about Batman's new choice in costume. Ooh, I love the coat, it's kind of like a cape. And those little helmet pieces are pointy as if they were ears. Man, you know, if you can't call yourself Batman anymore, you might as well call yourself the Silver Fox. I don't think the beard would have worked with a cowl anyway. Jack has a lot more than just jokes and japes to offer too. He also asks the also important question of what exactly happened between Powers and Wayne back in the day, and why does he seem to want to destroy his legacy now? As Bruce explains, there was a time when the two men were actually quite tight. In fact, Derek Powers isn't even his real name. His family was from Tel Aviv, and a young, brilliant Derek was horrified to discover that a bunch of Wayne Enterprises science was built on Nazi science brought over by the Freezes. Hey, they worked Mr. Freeze back in. Bruce and Lucius Fox would end up putting Derek in automotive, where he would once again end up thriving. In fact, in this world, he's basically the godfather of the Batmobile design, which explains how Derek was able to discover that Bruce was actually Batman very early into his career. Derek would end up wanting to make weapons out of his brand new breakthroughs, but Bruce disallowed it. This ended up bringing the two men into a bit of mutually assured destruction. Derek would get to make his weapons. In fact, he would go on to make much of the same gear that Batman would use throughout his years as a crime fighter, and in return, Derek wouldn't spill the beans about Bruce's true identity, which he seemingly never did. Hell, when Derek Derek did take over Wayne Enterprises and had the ability to completely wipe Bruce off the map, he didn't. He kept the Wayne family legacy and just renamed the company Wayne Powers. In fact, it's the Joker AI that says despite Bruce's own mopey self-hatred, at the end of the day, people really did love and respect the Wayne family, and they especially loved and respected the legacy of Batman. It's at this point Terry and Bruce finally end up meeting face to face. Terry is enraged, thinking that Bruce was responsible for the death of his father, only here's the thing, Bruce has no idea who Warren McGinnis even was. It's also interesting to note that up until now, Terry has actually gone out of his way to make sure not to kill anyone, despite the fact that Derek is indifferent to murder. Terry might very well have tried to kill Bruce, though, were it not for the intervention of, well, Duke, only he's not just Duke anymore, he's Robin. Wow, you know what? Round of applause. What a journey Duke has gone on throughout this White Knight series to eventually end up becoming Robin anyway. Duke and Terry end up fighting, and in all the commotion, poor elderly Bruce gets pushed off the building and seemingly hits the ground really hard. But it's on that note right there the comic comes to a close, everyone, and so that was Batman Beyond White Knight issue number 3, and once again, I continue to really enjoy this series, all its twists, all its turns, and all its great allusions to Batman Beyond stories from the past. It is, however, not a perfect issue, though. Barbara makes a monologue here that did make me raise an eyebrow just a little bit. She says that she's not afraid to possibly end up pulling Gotham into a civil war, because she feels if push comes to shove, your average day middle-class schmo will happily back the GCPD in overthrowing the more fascist and more militaristic GTO. Did Barbara forget the GTO was founded in part by a lot of actual GCPD officers? Also, you mean to tell me in this dark dystopian future there's still somehow a middle class? Pfft, wow, now I really know this is a science fiction fantasy. This is mostly a minor complaint, but it's one I'd be remiss if I didn't end up bringing up. Beyond that, there's still a hell of a lot to like here. Duke has managed to go on one hell of a journey all the way from the original White Knight to now. To think this Elseworld story actually shows him more love than the main universe does most of the time, and heck, I was the last person to think that Derek Powers they might actually be able to hammer a semi-sympathetic origin for, but hey, here we go, he's not your regular mustache-twirling evil industrialist anymore. Overall, I'd feel comfortable giving this one an 8.5 out of 10. Good stuff. Hey there everyone, Kate Joel again, and I just want to thank you so much for watching to the end of the video. It means a lot to me. And hey, if you enjoyed the book I covered in this issue and want some comics of your own, might I recommend Book Depository? It's my #1 place for shopping for comic book trades. You get a great price, and if you use my link down in the description, you'll actually be helping me out at the same time. You get something, I get something, everybody wins, right? So until next time everyone, I've been Joel, and I will see you in the next video. Bye-bye.